Well, what's happening? So today I thought we'd do something a little bit different. Something that has never been done on the internet before. Something totally new, totally fresh, totally original. That's right, we're going to do a tier list. The epitome of content right here. But I was thinking, hey, maybe this could be a new series. You know, a little filmmaker tier list, bit of an actor tier list, makeup artist tier list. You know, we'll make our way down. We'll make our way down. But I figured, since my Once Upon a Time in Hollywood video is doing so well, thank you for that, by the way, if you're subscribed from watching that video. Thank you so much. I still haven't learned how to make a Bloody Mary, by the way, so please stop commenting it. Or don't. It's engagement either way, so I don't really care. But today I thought, for the first episode of Tiered Up, or Tearing Up, or whatever I end up calling it, if I end up calling it anything, Quentin Tarantino. Let's tier his discography. S tier to D tier. If there is indeed any S or D tiers, but we'll find out along the way. We'll do it together. It'll be beautiful. Come on, let's go. Reservoir Dogs, the GOAT, the OG, the original. Where do we put it? I have a very big soft spot for Reservoir Dogs. I think it was the second Tarantino film I ever saw. I think the first was actually Inglourious Basterds. But there's something about Reservoir Dogs that just really sticks with me. I'm a sucker for a really confident debut, and this epitomizes confident debut. So much of the Tarantino language that we're so used to nowadays is here. You know, I can't think of many other filmmakers that kind of come out the gate with such a recognizable style that just kind of instantaneously says, "Here I am. This is what I'm about." You know, you think of the greats. You know, Spielberg had to learn. Lucas had to learn, but Scorsese had to learn. You know, Brian De Palma, like all these greats, kind of had to get there. They had to get there, and then they had a style. But right off the bat, Tarantino like just nails it. Just nails it. The crispy dialogue, the non-linear structure, the use of actors that are maybe a little bit past their prime, but we're going to bring them back and do something incredible with them. It's all here. It's all here. But at the same time, is it S or A tier? I think it's B tier. I'll be honest. I think it's B tier for the sheer fact that it's the foundation, but films that he would make later on really take that foundation and go to new heights with it. But that doesn't mean that Reservoir Dogs isn't good. B tier does not mean bad. It's really, really good. But going on now to Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction, that's an interesting one, because I think Pulp Fiction rides in that film bro, you know, kind of conversation where everybody thinks they've seen it way too many times. And I'll be honest, I don't think people have. I just think Pulp Fiction has this reputation as the film snob, film bro, I like films, man, movie, that people just kind of watch it once and go, yeah, Pulp Fiction is really great, and then they never watch it again. And when they go to Tarantino's filmography and say, oh, what have I not seen in a while, they immediately brush over Pulp Fiction, even if it's the one they've watched the least. And Pulp Fiction is the kind of film that you think of and you know all the moments. Even if you haven't seen it, you know all the moments in it just through cultural osmosis. But then you go to it, or you go back to it, and you watch it, and it's like, of course, this is Pulp Fiction. It's fantastic. It's great. Bruce Willis, John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Tarantino in his second feature. Not just a film that has the snappy dialogue, that has the really cool characters, but it's the first one that makes you go, wow, he knows how to world build. You feel like there is this world that exists beyond the frame, and you really want to explore that. To be honest with you, it's the reason it's S tier. It's the reason it's S tier. I know people have their opinions about what the best Tarantino film is, and I'm not saying that Pulp Fiction is his best film or even my favorite of his, but Pulp Fiction deserves the S tier purely because it is great. It is great, and I'd argue that that's not really arguable. It is great, and it's so influential, and it's great. It's great. If you haven't seen it in a long time, go watch it. Moving on, Jackie Brown. Jackie Brown, kind of the dark horse of the Tarantino filmography. It's the one, I believe he said once that if you think Jackie Brown is his favorite film, then you probably don't like his films. And I've seen that to be the case for some people, certainly. They prefer the I suppose the laxness of it. It feels grittier. It feels more real, less heightened than some of his other films. But I really dig it. I think Tarantino adapting a work instead of writing an original work, I think that surprisingly doesn't seem to affect him. Maybe this is the exact piece that he chose and that's why it works so well, but it makes you realize that Tarantino is a very talented writer, not just in his own line of work, but even when he's, adapting. And it still feels like a Tarantino film, even if it's not as kind of out there and zany and maybe wacky. It still has that Tarantino heart to it. And I think that's really impressive, because there's a lot of filmmakers that can get bogged down in adaptation and they kind of lose their voice once they go into that world. So it's a credit to Tarantino that he's able to still get his voice out there, despite that. Jackie Brown, it's one that I haven't seen in a while, but I have really fond memories of it, and especially for what Jackie Brown would influence in his career, especially in the latter half. Yeah, I mean, I'll give it B tier. I really do enjoy it. I think it's pretty much in the same line of Reservoir Dogs. Okay, now getting on to some perhaps hot takes. I don't know. I think the Kill Bill movies, I think they kind of divide opinion in the Tarantino filmography. For me, I think they're kind of lesser Tarantino. I think when people talk about Tarantino in excess, I think these are the movies that they're definitely talking about, because Kill Bill could have been one movie, and I don't mean the 4-hour version that he was going to put out, and I think that he did screen at a film festival. I think they could have easily been a 2.5, 3-hour movie, easily. I like Kill Bill 1. I'll give Kill Bill 1 in the B tier. I do like it. I think there's a lot to like. Pacing, I like the way it kind of starts off kind of with a bang, literally shot in the head, and then it goes into the fight scene. I love that scene. It was really tense when the daughter comes home, especially. Love that. And then it kind of jumps back, and you kind of slowly go from this woman who's been basically risen from the dead, through sheer vengeance. And I love the slowness of it. I love the build-up of it. And then the ending, of course, with Lucy Liu and that whole fight scene. I mean, iconic. With the yellow jumpsuit, iconic. I do love all that. I really do. It's when we get into Kill Bill Volume 2 that I feel, okay, a lot of this stuff could be trimmed. Maybe trim some stuff from the first one, fuse these two together. You get a really good film, because I love the ending. The stuff with Bill, David Carradine, chef's kiss. Love that stuff. But then I think, Michael Madsen, Daryl Hannah, especially in the first half, it feels repetitive because Michael Madsen ends up getting the better of her and burying her alive, and then it's fair enough, you get that, that lovely flashback sequence of her learning from the master, but it does feel like, okay, we had this forward momentum at the end of Kill Bill Volume 1, and then we go into 2, and she's kind of not right back where she started, but she's kind of been set back a bit, and because you need to, because Kill Bill Volume 2 still needs to have a structure. It's definitely a film that could do with a fan edit. Somebody edit that shit down and just make them one movie. I gotta put Kill Bill Volume 2 in the C tier. I don't think it's as good as Volume 1, but I think both of them together, I think that could be A tier. We'll have to see someday if Tarantino ever decides to do his own little cut. But for now, B and C tier for those Kill Bill movies. But now we're on to Death Proof. Death Proof. Well, it may be Death Proof, but it wasn't Bomb Proof. Let's go straight into D. Straight in the D tier. I respect Death Proof for what Tarantino was trying to do, because at least you can tell that he's a filmmaker that's very aware of his tropes. That explains all the feet, all the... You know what I mean. Like, I don't think I need to go on. You know all the typical tropes of a Tarantino film, and that's why he tends to put them in there. It's like a nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of thing. So he's already a pretty self-deprecating filmmaker, even though he is very egotistical, so it's kind of the duality of man in that sense. But Death Proof, I think, goes way too far with it, because you can tell by watching it, here he's really trying to kind of poke so much fun at himself. It goes really far into that self-parody angle, and it just ends up being overly long and feeling a bit overly indulgent for what isn't his best writing, I don't think. The long dialogue sequences feel like padding and not the the kind of like little nuggets of gold that they did in his first few films. Even the kind of the psycho the psycho reference where the bunch of characters that we meet in the beginning end up getting killed off, and because it's so long until they end up getting killed off, it makes you go, oh really, we have to start this all over again. And it's like, it's kind of a slog. I remember when Grindhouse came out, I much preferred Planet Terror, which is a whole heap of schlock, but it cuts to the point. It's entertaining. It's over fast. Great. Death Proof feels so long. So long. I agree with him when he says that it's his worst film. I'm glad he said he'll never make a film like it again. So it is D tier, but I do kind of respect it in some ways for taking the chance and kind of going that far with the self-parody. It didn't work, but fair enough. Death Proof marks the end of that first half of Tarantino's career. I think Death Proof's a good kind of cut in the middle, because now we're going into the proper blockbusters. If those first films were still him in, even with Kill Bill, because it's a lower budget, what we're going into now are the blockbusters, starting with Inglourious Basterds. Inglourious Basterds, first one I've ever seen. Incredible. Such good writing. Brad Pitt is exceptional in it. Christoph Waltz, of course, no introduction. And then still to this day, I still rewatch Inglourious Basterds, and I'm like, this is just so perfect. So perfect. He knows when exactly to end a chapter, switch to another character's point of view, and ride that story right up to the peak of interest, and then jump into the next one. Just jumping between all of those things, and the chapters feel so perfectly placed. Yeah, it's so good. The whole idea of the bastards going into Germany to kill Hitler. It's like automatically you're like, okay, well that's an intriguing premise on its own, but then you have so much built on top of that. The sequence in the bar with Michael Fassbender, who is exceptional in it, iconic, love it. It's a filmmaking masterclass. It's a writing masterclass. I couldn't recommend it highly enough. That's A tier for me. That's A tier. Love it. Going into Django Unchained. Now, Django Unchained is another one. Love it. And I think it's only gotten better. Both Inglourious Basterds and Django Unchained, which is coming up on 10 years old next year. That's crazy to me because I saw it in the cinema. I think they both belong in A tier. And I'll say why. Inglourious Basterds is him making the war movie, the Tarantino war movie. Then Django Unchained is him making the Tarantino Western. And it's these big stories. But unlike Inglourious Basterds that focuses on, multiple mini stories and kind of ties it in this Pulp Fiction-esque way, Django Unchained is a very straightforward story. It's kind of A to B to C to D, all the way through. Tarantino is really capable, even when you give him this huge film, this epic scale film, and without any flashbacks, without any kind of cutaways, without anything like that, he can make a really engrossing, really emotionally engrossing, really terrifying, thought-provoking, in a way that Inglourious Basterds was fun. I think that Django Unchained actually goes a bit deeper. I think everybody's just exceptional in it. Christoph Waltz, once again, I mean, wonderful. Jamie Foxx, I think I underestimated back in the day when I watched it, but watching it again, I think he's exceptional. I think he's really great. And even the ending, I know a lot of people have an issue with the last act of the film because it kind of feels like it's going up to a resolution in Candyland, and then the massive shootout happens, and then he gets shipped away, and then he kills everybody, including Tarantino, with his amazing Australian accent. Just great. And then he goes all the way back. But honestly, I think I love that. Making him suffer because Schultz couldn't keep it in his sleeve, because Schultz just couldn't handle losing to Leonardo DiCaprio, the massive racist. I think it's a kind of a great way to go, okay, well, my pally old white friend's dead, I've got to take this, on myself. And he really does. And then the idea to me that Tarantino rewrote that entire ending in his trailer because the actual ending wasn't working, it just shows the genius, man, because that feels like it's the end. That feels like it is just the end of the film as he wrote, and it was written in his trailer in 20 minutes. fantastic. Those two films, back-to-back A-tier films, chef's kiss. The Hateful Eight, you either love it or you hate it. I don't know many people who are in the middle when it comes to The Hateful Eight. I put it in the B tier. I really want, it's so close to being A tier for me because I love the theatricality of it. I love the cabin. I love the claustrophobia of it. I love everybody kind of having to interact with each other within this confined space. I love all the little set pieces and the chapters. I even dig when Tarantino comes in and does his little narration. Like, I thought that was just a great way to break it up. There's just little things that take this huge film and gives it that Reservoir Dogs vibe. It goes back to that first film with that kind of claustrophobia of all these guys in this warehouse together. It gives it that vibe, and it turns into a murder mystery, and then it turns into like this tense finale where everyone's just bleeding and dying, and oh, it's just, it is wonderful. And it has, I think, some of the best dialogue that Tarantino's ever written. I can understand why he wanted to put it on stage. I mean, the ending to me as well is one of Tarantino's simplest, most symbolic, is when Samuel L. Jackson and Walton Goggins hang Daisy Domergue. Like, when she looks like an angel, and then they end up reading the Lincoln letter. They're covered in blood, and he balls it up and throws it away. And I don't know, I think that was funny. I was laughing constantly throughout that. It was like a really funny, sweet moment. But yeah, Hateful Eight, B tier, but so close to A tier for me, for sure. And finally, because we're not doing, Four Rooms, Dusk Till Dawn, Natural Born Killers, we're doing his main filmography here. We have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I'm sure the people who've seen my Cliff Booth video will not be surprised when I put it in S tier. I think it's like the culmination of everything that Tarantino has learned throughout his career. I think that it's such a surprise, especially because even if The Hateful Eight was a bit more pulled back, it's still, okay, we're going back to that Reservoir Dogs kind of style, but it still has that kind of, that zany factor, that like, here's these characters that are really, wild and over the top. But then you have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it kind of actually takes more from Jackie Brown than any other film in his discography, at least for those first, that first 2 hours. It's just so peaceful and chill and relaxed, and it's just like you're watching these people go about their day. You're watching Rick go and perform his part on Lancer. You're watching Rick drive around the city and then go to Spawn Ranch, and then of course Sharon Tate just go about her day, which I love that. I really do. I mean, some people have obviously issued the critiques that she doesn't really do anything, she doesn't really speak, and this, that, and the other, and fair enough critiques, that absolutely fair enough. But I could watch those scenes all day, because the Margot Robbie just exudes so much joy and life, and you really fall in love not just with Sharon Tate, but you fall in love with like her way of life. It's so carefree and easy, and of course just the comparison between Sharon Tate, a character who is on their way up, and then Dalton, who's kind of having to deal with the fact that he's on his way down. The third act, where Tarantino just takes all the tropes that you've been kind of going, oh, he's kind of growing, he's kind of not doing those anymore, and he says like, no, I'm still having fun, and then he just kills the Manson family, and it's like, it's as cathartic as Django killing Steven in Django. It's as cathartic as Eli Roth shooting the face off Hitler in Inglourious Bastards. And then of course you have that wonderful fairy tale ending of Dalton ascending through the gates up to the Tate house, for possibly a different kind of history, a history where the old and the new can kind of coexist together and both make wonderful art and schlock, and the kind of Hollywood that maybe Tarantino wishes had occurred, but obviously bittersweetly didn't. But yeah, that is his filmography. That has been a tiered list of his filmography. Let me know what yours are. Put your tiered lists in the comments below. Of course, this is only my opinion, so I'm very interested to see what you guys come up with. If you like this video, why don't you go ahead and give it a like? While you're down there, why don't you subscribe if you haven't already? And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.